Okay, so I was just finishing up talking about liberalism as here it's defined for the 19th century, and the idea of free trade being laissez-faire. Okay, and this is something that's definitely not associated with liberals now. And in fact, the Libertarian Party, or to say that you're a libertarian now, um, in modern American politics, for example, would mean that you don't care about moral things. You want government out of worrying about gay marriage, or if you smoke weed, or you know, things like that. Free speech, drugs. Basically, Ron Paul, who was a popular populist libertarian, said he didn't even believe that the government should regulate homogenizing milk and let the markets dictate, right? I mean, if you buy somebody's milk and it gives you diarrhea, well, you just won't buy it anymore, and the company will just fall. It'll just not sell anymore, or it'll sell and everybody will be fine. In other words, for him, it's like you let the markets dictate. You don't let the government intervene in business. Okay, that's associated with libertarianism, and libertarianism would be seen as a kind of extreme view of economics coming out of the Republican Party's view. In other words, many Republicans still want government intervention in the economy if necessary, but they want it to be limited, while the libertarians really just want to go straight for this principle of laissez-faire now in modern politics. And this is what they wanted then. There was this idea, right, that said that basically that government should only intervene in the economy to maintain public order or protect property rights. So there's still the idea that they want the state with as little government intervention as possible. In other words, police are great in that police can protect private property. They can, maintain a safe environment in which people can get to work or go buy a cup of coffee. Let the commerce can thrive. Okay, right? But they don't want the police like they used to do in the past, saying it's illegal if you're gay, or if somebody's smoking a joint or doing cocaine, to waste our tax dollars on worrying about that. That's and there's variances of view on that as well. Now, at the time, I think that it might have been a little bit different on that, but the idea of public order, someone could be against drugs, saying that drugs create disorder. The bottom line is, what I want you to focus on is that, in other words, they wanted the state to simply maintain the calm. Okay, right? They don't want no uprisings. They don't want to see a massive police state either. They want there to be what they consider the natural laws and principles of the economy. And you'll notice a theme here, because there was many of them following the liberal economic theory of David Ricardo, okay? And he was a capitalist that he felt that there were these iron laws of wages that were a part of what was natural in the economy. As you see in this, his theories could make sense, but if you're a worker, you may not find much of what he writes to your advantage if you're an average worker. He may actually be saying, you should really understand it's necessary that you're not living as well as the rest of us. You can see how it would appeal to the capitalist, and you can see how that would not work for people who are not. But you also will notice this. This is a time period, the 19th century, where all political ideas and all ideologies, remember, an ideology is a theory of society and government that forms the basis for political programs, for how to look at the world, and so forth. That there is a natural way of doing things, and that history is moving towards something good or bad. Okay, so even if they're not religious, and remember, the liberals seem to be a little bit more not wanting the power of the church, okay, for example, to be there. But everybody believes in this idea of progress, as if it was something that history's moving towards something, and that to go against certain principles of economics or the natural world is to mess things up. So you might see an imbalance of things, and for someone to try to fix it, they might say, well, you can't fix this. This is how it's supposed to be. There's supposed to be poor people. There's supposed to be rich people. Some people are supposed to be in this position. Women are supposed to do this. And, there's this kind of like set of ideas about the natural world and where history is moving to. When I was in grad school, to graduate, you have to pass like a test. Like you get put into a room, and your professor of one of the classes you took gives you a question you have to write about for, like, I think it was 3 hours with a pencil. It was very stressful. And the simple question he said is, explain 19th century historicism. And I thought, oh my God, thank goodness that I studied the word historicism, or else I would have just been dead in the water. Historicism is the idea that history, long story short, is moving in a particular direction. It's not a neutral thing. It's not just like, pardon the expression, shit happens. No, things happen for a reason, even outside of, like, there's certain laws and principles that are moving history in a particular direction. That's essentially what it is. And you'll see more of that coming up to Marx and Compton. And to a certain extent, you're seeing a little bit of that in Ricardo. But, okay, so let's move on to conservatism. Preserving the established order. So basically, right, after the French Revolution, there's still monarchies in the world. And if you're a monarch, the French Revolution is like really bad. I mean, they're chopping off heads and they were all interrelated. So this was a horrifying event, absolutely horrifying. And the excesses of it and the violence seemed to justify their position to say, oh my gosh, this is what happens when you let the masses, get what they want. They just cut off everybody's heads. There's just excessive chaos. And it's only going to be redeemed by somebody like Napoleon or something. And they might not even like Napoleon, but the bottom line is that they saw this as clearly an understanding that the French Revolution represents the worst thing that could ever happen in trying to change the world. And in a sense, this is a theme that's going to pop up. Because later on, when the communists, we'll talk about this, come to power, and again, communism kind of goes the direction it does, conservatives do have a tradition of basically saying, oh, you said the world was bad when we were in power, or when the old world was set up the way it was, but when you guys tried to change it, look how bad it looked then. Huh? Look how bad it looked then. So that's kind of the mark. This is the back and forth. So the revolutionaries, the radicals will say, well, look, you're saying that we messed things up, but you guys made it so bad that we had to do what we had to do. And so it's like both can make very strong arguments for each other, because at the end of the day, a failed revolution and a failed status quo, everybody failed. And then there's the cynics, later on we're going to get a political ideologies that basically said, well, it's because humans just fail. There's no way out of this trap, man. One bad thing for the next. That's the more negative side of looking at it. In any case, Edmund Burke is considered one of the first conservatives. He did write on reflections on the revolution in France. And of course, we saw that if you read the text, that he obviously saw this was a terrible thing. He rejected the concept of natural rights. Now, again, that's going to be something that people, our founding fathers in the United States, would accept. But now, a guy like Thomas Jefferson actually supported the French Revolution, believe it or not, even though he was a man full of many contradictions as well. Not all the founding fathers did. But the idea of natural rights are going to be embedded in the concept of the founding fathers. I mean, and conservatives now look to the founding fathers. So again, there's a difference, right? That was something that rejected by an early conservative, okay? Because of what he saw in the French Revolution and how negative that seemed to be. Here's the idyllic past. How wonderful. Okay, so socialism. This is so important. In America, I can't think of a more misused word or abused word. And don't take what I'm saying as trying to advocate socialism on you. But it's still fair to say, no matter what your political ideology, I would argue that when it comes to socialism and communism, most people can't define it. And I just wanted you to do a test. Next time you hear somebody say, Obama's a socialist, or you hear somebody say the term socialist or communist, ask them to define what that is. And tell them you want a good explanation. Tell them I'm a little confused. Just tell me what a communist is. Tell me what a socialist is. Oh, even better yet, what's the difference between the socialist and the communist? Oh man, I guarantee you. I don't know what the numbers are. It'd be fun to even make that a project. Like, just tell you to go out and list how many people can actually give you an educated definition. They could talk mess on it, or they could say it's the best thing ever. One or the other, but can they define it? It's not going to happen. I'm just telling you. This is my experience. And if you are around people who can define those things, regardless of what they think, you're around a more educated class of people, and good for you. But right now, the idea of socialism and communism doesn't get brought up anymore since the Soviet Union fell, until I saw Obama getting elected, and he's now considered, and they call him a socialist. The Democratic parties are, the Republicans often accuse them of being socialist. Well, is that a fair thing to say? Is it a bad thing? What is it? Okay, I'm going to explain that. We're going to go into socialism and communism in this next section. My next lecture.